Hey guys, how are you all? Hope so you all are doing well. So let's start the story without any further conversation. We start on 2:20. It's 2:30. It's finished from 11:05. Hope so. Jimin, there is a trick to each apple. Mr. Park could speak something. Mrs. Park, Jimin, son, come meet with them. He is Wangza and she is her wife. And he's their son Yeonjun. Jimin, hello. I am Park Jimin. Mrs. Wang, oh, you are so cute, son. Jimin, I know. Mrs. Park gave him clear. Jimin, I mean, thank you, auntie. He said with the smiling. They all sit and Jimin is eating apple. Jimin, huh? He messaged YoOngI and YoOngI see his message like he opened his account. Jimin smile. YoOngI, yes. Jimin, I'm feeling bored. YoOngI, come here. Jimin, hope so. I can. I am with my parents. YoOngI, come to meet me later. Jimin, I stay at your place. YoOngI, I will be so happy. Jimin, okay then, let me play a game for this now. He said and placed his phone on the side. Mrs. Wang asked Jimin some questions and Jimin gave replies. Huh? Okay, so he's shown, so this happens. And then Wong family go. Mr. Park, this is how you behave in front of guests. Jimin, what I do? Mr. Park, Jimin, change yourself. Otherwise, it's not Mrs. Park. I talk with him. She said, then Mr. Park, go. Jimin look at his mom. Mrs. Park, why you do this? My Jimin, they are saying me with mom. He make a pout and his mom. Mrs. Park, they are going to be your dad arrange your with Mr. Wang's son. He today come to see you. She said, and Jimin see his mom. Jimin, mom. Jimin, what? Mom, how can you do this? How can you do this? You don't ask from me. What is this? Mrs. Park, Jimin, son, listen, Jimin. I don't listen. You know I listen anyone, mom. I don't do with them, Mrs. Park. He is a good boy, Jimin. Then set him be. But if he even think this, I will him, Mrs. Park's son. Jimin, I am going at young house. I stay there. He said, and he go from there, Mrs. Park. Sign. Okay, so Jimin come in. Jimin come in YoOngI mansion. He direct come in the room. He see him. He make a big pouch and sit in front of him. YoOngI, what happened? Jimin, I said you talk with my parents, YoOngI, but no, you don't listen me. Now come inward to see me taking with someone else. He said and him Jimin with this. YoOngI, today you said this, but you don't said this after that. His voice is so serious and also Jimin's feeling from him. YoOngI, your father decided, he said as he Jimin on the of him and caressing his hairs. Jimin is feeling you are read what he's feeling right now. Jimin is feeling from him. Jimin YoOngI with whom? Jimin, the businessman, Mr. Wang's son, YoOngI Wang's son. He asked, and Jimin just YoOngI, I handle everything. His voice is same. So after that, there were a silence. Jimin looked at him. He finally think to speak. Jimin Min. YoOngI see him. Jimin, I am feeling. YoOngI, from whom? Jimin, you. He said, and YoOngI realized his voice is true for his. YoOngI, sorry, I just become. Why someone look at the thing which is he said, then Jimin make up out. And then he sits beside him. Sorry, Jimin sign as no and smile. Jimin, be careful from next time. Use your this tone with others, but not with me. Yoongi, I will never. His voice turned into softened one, and Jimin smiled lightly. He on his cheeks softly. Yoongi, what you said to your parents? Jimin, of course I am at young house, he said simply, but then he started to think. Jimin, Yoongi, Yoongi, Jimin, I don't want to meet you like this. You talk with my parents, please. You are so good. They don't say no to you, Yoongi. If I want to you, I no need to talk with anyone. I do simply. It's you who think if you want to, then let's do. No, Jimin, no, Yoongi. Tell me if you want to me. He said, and Jimin stayed silent. Jimin, why don't you want to meet them? Yoongi, actually, your dad is right. Jimin nodded hurriedly. Yoongi, take him. Yes, Yoongi, he my friend. Without any reason, he said he tried to. The you tell me, my friend can do this. Jimin looked at him and sighed as no how much he is in. Yoongi, I go and there I meet him. And we had on this that's why Jimin your friend don't do anything. Yoongi sign as no. Jimin then if you said I talk with dad randomly, he listen me. He at me sometimes but he me so much. Yoongi, if you if you really want to do something, then your father had a green file in his house of in his home office. You gave me the file, then I prove he don't do anything. Jimin, green file? How you know? Yoongi, your father assistant, no, he don't do anything, so he tell me. Jimin, okay, when you want the file, I give you. After that, you talk with dad as you can. He don't do anything. He don't do anything. You make dad understand also. He said, and Yoongi smiled. He on his forehead and nodded. Yoongi, alright. As you said, Jimin smiled to see him. Yoongi in mind. Now what you and now I everything in front of your eyes once again you to me, he said, and on Jimin hears who's watching the reels. Jimin watched reels for some time and then he fell in sleep. Yoongi is doing. He sit on the couch watching Jimin while rolling his on the glass. Yoongi is like with him. When in future Jimin got to know the reality, what to do? Yoongi the last sip he went to him and sit beside him. Whenever Jimin stay here, Yoongi sleep on the couch and Jimin sleep on the bed. Yoongi his face and stop on Yoongi the urge to this. He sat down to him. He can feel Jimin. He stopped and see him. He places on his forehead. Jimin moved a little bit. He turned his direction. Yoongi can see him with the blanket and him. He don't go in the he and start. Jimin is moving, but Yoongi. After some times, when he understand, he stand up and go sit on the couch and start to see him. He normally don't do much, but whenever Jimin is around him, he also lay on the couch and start to stirring the ceiling. And after that, he himself fell in sleep. Okay, so I leave so many words. That's why my voice, I finish the text early, but the length of the text is same. Okay, so the next text is Yoongi wake up next day. Yeah, next day Yoongi wake up. He sits on the couch and see no one is in the room. He see the time, it's 8 a.m. He went toward the bed and see the rose and letter. I am going college. See you later. And also this is a gift. This is a small gift for you. He said and Yoongi smiled. Jimin come home. Jimin come home. He don't talk with anyone. He go in his room. Mr. Park is in office and Mrs. Park is trying to talk with him. Mrs. Park, Jimin, son, listen. Jimin, come in the room, he said, and she come. Mrs. Park's son, Jimin, sit here, mom. He is calm now. She smiled and sit in front of him. Mrs. Park, Jimin's son, listen me. He is a good boy. Jimin, what's my age, mom? Mrs. Park, huh? Jimin, where I study? Mrs. Park is so confused. Jimin, I am young now and I study in college. I am not in school. You decide something for me and I agree. You don't me for once I someone or not, huh? Mrs. Park, you someone. Jimin behind him. Mrs. Park, you have to forget him, Jimin. Your dad never listen you. Jimin, meet him once. He is so good, mom. Mrs. Park stand up. Mrs. Park, why we see the way where we don't have to go? So please, huh? Said him, forget you also. Jimin, he will everyone more, but don't forget me. He have to, Jimin. He is not a Jimin. Meet him once, mom, please. Mrs. Park, the day after tomorrow is your and the next day is your Jimin, mom. He everything you are taking this easy. Please, Mrs. Park, don't listen him and go from here. Jimin eyes turn. If he and his phone start ringing, his eyes widen to see the caller ID. If he attend, if he attend the call, Yoongi got to know he's and he can't let this happen. I am going to take I call you later. He message him and then sign he have to do Yoongi work and after that he have to set him he talk with his parents as it's so well for Jimin to do all this. He think and come in his dad office. He locked the door and sign. He start to find the green file. His mom is taking rest in her room. It's almost 15 minutes past. Jimin find the file. Finally, he don't open the file. If he do, he may know everything what's inside the file for he go out from the office and without. It's night time. It's night time. Jimin is walking on the road. He don't set driver to drop him in the mansion. He is walking and then a car stop. He take his step back but his son in real life. Yoongi come out. He go and him. Jimin, finally you come. Yoongi, why you are walking on the road like this and at this time? Okay, so Yoongi is passing from here. Gladly he sees Jimin. Jimin look at him. Jimin, I am coming to meet you. Yoongi, everything is alright. Jimin gave him the file. Yoongi see and his eyes turn. Jimin, now you do your work and talk with my dad, please, Yoongi. Tomorrow is my and the day after tomorrow is. He said Dan. Yoongi see him. Yoongi, it's not happens, Jimin. This is what I am saying. Talk with my dad, please. Yoongi, come. He held his hand and about to go, but Jimin stopped him. Jimin, where? Yoongi, to get Jimin still like this, Yoongi? Yoongi, let's get first. After that, I talk with them. Jimin, no, you talk with them. They don't said no. Wait, let me tell you something. Mom said me to forget you. I tell her I someone. Yoongi, please. Yoongi, when I said you come with me, you are not even listening me. Jimin, you said me you talk with my parents and now you are saying to do like this. I can't, Yoongi. I am there. I am their only son. Yoongi, so what you want? Jimin, talk with dad. Yoongi, huh? He signed as. Now Jimin is not ready to listen him. Yoongi, listen me. He cupped his face. Yoongi, come with me. Jimin signed as no. He called him and Jimin pushed him. Jimin, what you are saying is wrong. I don't come with you. He at him and Yoongi see him calmly. If Jimin him also, he don't he don't at him. Yoongi, I think to make everything alright, but I think you want to know the reality, he said, and they heard the voice Jimin him and it's his biggest. Yoongi must be smile. I think I write this. Whatever, let's see what I write. See him, him, hum. You were saying, see him, he. Yoongi, you were saying something. Jimin, he see him, he's English. He see him, he back and see Jimin as the water drops his. Yoongi see him, he really take his he take his steps back. Yoongi, don't make me that much. Jimin don't know what he is doing or what he is saying. Jimin, if you don't do anything, I have to do. Yoongi, you can't. I already call your dad here. Okay, so he called 1 hour ago as he is out of city. That's why it's take time to reach here. Jimin, really? Then why you are saying all this? He went to him and hold his hand. Yoongi, the jacket and gave him. He see the light. Yoongi, your father is here. Go with him. I come soon. He on his forehead and go Jimin. He stop as Yoongi go and then Mr. Park come out. He see Jimin. Mr. Park, my son, you okay? Jimin, I am fine, Dad, but why? Mr. Park, let's go home first. And you go and find him. Huh. They come home. Mrs. Park, Jimin, she start. Jimin is so confused. Mrs. Park, oh my son, how you go? How you go? You okay? He's something. Jimin, mom, dad, what you are talking about? Mr. Park, Jimin, son, you meet someone? He show him the picture. It's Yoongi picture. Jimin, yeah, I do. He stop as Mr. Park speak. Mr. Park, he said, and Jimin face on his spot. Jimin, he Mr. Park, he's Jimin. Son, I am finding him from a long time, and he take the file also, which have all the proof. Jimin, dad, he's the CEO. He's not something else. Mr. Park, who said he is son? He called me. He said he will you. That's why you come. You okay? Find the third last scene. You okay? He said and roll in Jimin. In Jimin's eyes, he hardly find his phone. He opened the chat. His hands start to. You are the queen of the king. He wrote the message and Jimin is like he know. How can him? He tell him how much he all this and he's Jimin start to Mr. Park, you okay son? He's something. Jimin see her. Jimin he whisper and they become Jimin go in his room. He closed the door. Mrs. Park, Jimin, Mr. Park, He don't do anything. I know him, he said in his voice. Mr. Pa. Now he take the file and now Jimin go there. How he take the file and how Jimin go there. Jimin sit on. Jimin sit on the bed. And lost in his thoughts. He see the jacket and think about his father's words. And Yoongi said his father's, but he is the one who do all that. He hand over his all to him, his father. But right now, he is not thinking this. The thing is, this Yoongi him, he is him from the just for the file from 1 year. Him or not is rolling from his eyes. Outside the rain is still continue. When the terrace door opened, he know who come. He wipes. He is looking down. Yoongi, come and see him. He went toward him and sit in front of him. Jimin look up. The room lights is dim. Third last scene, yeah. The room lights is his eyes is shining. The is shining. He wiped the Jimin can't see his face. He on the lamplight. Chungi, why are you? I don't. Jimin, hope so you can. Yoongi, you order and now. Jimin, why? Why you do this? And it's falling like a fountain. Yoongi, forgetting your. He said and on his forehead. Jimin, I don't you, he whispered when Yoongi held his chin. Yoongi, don't say this again. Jimin, you are more than dad, he said. Then Yoongi screamed, Yoongi, let's go somewhere. Jimin sighed as no, Jimin, I don't. I do the with the boy my parents choose for me. My mom, dad choose for me, he said, and Yoongi start. He said, and Yoongi start laughing like a person. Jimin is feeling from him. Yoongi, you try if you want. He said to him. Jimin, stop. Yoongi, Jimin hands is on his shoulder. Yoongi, make sure that don't. He said and stand up. Jimin see him with his eyes. Yoongi, I am still same. Jimin, you me for your work, nothing else. Yoongi, don't even think this. Jimin, it's true. Yoongi, it's not. Everything is but not for you. अरे मेरी भी लिखना भी ओए सो चीज हाँ चले रहो लगे रहो Jimin, if you me all this, why don't you leave all this? Yoongi, it's impossible. Jimin, Park Jimin for you. Yoongi Min Jimin, he said, and Go Jimin sighed. He lay on the bed and closed his eyes. He is really something. He don't let Jimin know about this. He sighed and fell in sleep. He don't know why. Next day, Jimin opened his eyes. He see his mom sit on the bed. He see her and place his head on her. Mrs. Park, Jimin's son. Jimin, I am ready for. He said. Then Mrs. Park smiled. Mrs. Park, thank you, son. I sent your dress. Get ready. Jimin nodded and she go. Jimin stand in front of the mirror. He see the and it's a drop of fell from his eyes and then he sighed. He go for fresh up and then start to get ready. He know Yoongi come today. He don't let this happen. Jimin is all ready. They arrange everything in the lawn. Jimin sit in front of the mirror seeing himself when the door knocked. Jimin come in and this is the second last scene. Jimin come downstairs. Jimin come downstairs. Everyone is impressed to see him. So, some is Yeonjun and some becoming. Jimin is looking so beautiful in light pink colored dress. He sits beside Jeonjun. He don't talk with anyone, nor with his father, nor with his parents. They all are gossiping. Jimin is feeling like he's here. He look, he know. He look here and there, and then he see. He stand in front. He look here and there, and then he see. He stand in front of him. He wear a mask and watching him. Mrs. Wong, let's start the ceremony, he said. Then Yoongi go from there. Jimin see him going from there. He sign and stay silent. Hyunjin understand he is not. Mrs. Wong, let's do the Jimin thanks auntie, but I don't want to. Mrs. Park, do Jimin son. She said, and Jimin look here and there. He is feeling from Yoongi as he know him. They don't know, and then Mr. Park don't know him much, but Jimin know everything about him. Yunjin hold his hand and place his hand on it. Jimin feel he can feel Yunjin. He's feeling so, and then Jimin, it's a little bit. Yunjin, we are soon to be. Jimin, I'm not. You run now, but on the. I don't. I don't. My voiceover is not ready to be finished now. Hmm. And you have to, he said, and he don't imagine anyone expect Yoongi. Why is like this Yoongi? It's enough for Jimin. He want to someone him. I see how much you run. You have to, he said. Then Jimin go from there. He don't want to hear all this. He don't want to hear all this. He about to enter in the house, but someone hold his hand. Jimin know the person, but because of the sudden, मेरा खत्म हो गया. Why voiceover is like this? His head on the end. The or maybe the person do this purposely. As you said, Jungi, good. He really. Hmm. ओए मोटो हट जा. हाँ मेरा लास्ट सीन है रुक जा जरा 5 मिनट का लास्ट सीन है 5 मिनट का लास्ट सीन. Jimin opened his Jimin opened his eyes slowly. He placed his hand on his head. He feel he sit on the couch and Yoongi come. Yoongi saw you wake up. His voice is as Jimin see him. Yoongi Jungkook he come, he said, and Jungkook come. Yoongi, it's good you sleep. He whispered, and Jimin remembered what Hyunjin said. Well, there is no difference between them. And the way him Yoongi, let's get Jimin. I want to go home to my parents. Yoongi, if you really don't want my mother, then come and stand here, he said. Then Jimin eyes wide and Jimin, no. You last scene. Jimin, no, you don't do this, Yoongi. You know I can do everything, he said in voice, and Jimin became really this time. He continuously Jimin, I, Yoongi, me, myself also, he said, and Jimin know he can do what he said. He him to him. Otherwise, Jimin never do with the. No matter he is Yoongi or something else. Mean Yoongi, did you accept Park Jimin? Yoongi, I do. He said in voice, and Jimin is Park Jimin. Did you accept me, Yoongi? Jimin, I do. Yoongi to say him. I announced to you both. He said, and Yoongi signed and to go. रसम भी नहीं पूरी की थी। हम ओके हैं 11 बजे तो पहले है ना। वाह जंकुक he don't listen him now as he also go from there now. Yoongi and Jimin is only in the room. Yoongi is him. Jimin still in the light pink colored dress looking so cute, but he's and thinking about the incident that happened some times ago. Yoongi went to him and he held his shoulder. Yoongi, why you are, huh? I think so many things, he said, and Jimin remember all this, what he said, what he do, why he only, and there is so many things he feel. He can't forget the words he said to him. Both are same. No one is changed. And here, last scene and the third last text, the heat today and the eyes. He is and Yoongi can sense something happens. Jimin is Yoongi call him. His voice turned into softened one. Yoongi back. He see him. Jimin he Yoongi stop. Jimin said him don't him. He said and again him Yoongi start. He don't know anything. Yoongi look at me. Your voice of Jimin back. He is looking down. Yoongi Yoongi, who did this? What happened? Tell me. And Jimin tell him everything. Yoongi want to the person Jimin him, and he is like, how can this happen? His father is also present there, so still all this happen. His father is blind or something else. Last in the second last as the voice stopped. The voice stopped. He see Jimin fell in sleep. He lay on the bed. Yoongi called someone. Yoongi, I want him in morning, huh? He said in his voice. He see Jimin who's sleeping peacefully. Lay on the bed. Yoongi, I the family to look at you. Jimin a little bit and he hide his face. He is sleeping after a long day. Yoongi is admiring him the whole night pass. He didn't sleep next day. Jimin wake up. His eyes, Jimin open his eyes slowly. He see no one is in the room. He sit on the bed and remember everything. He on his knees and after 10 minutes, Yoongi come out after fresh up last in the last text finally. Fresh up, he see him and went toward him. Yoongi see him. He sit in front of him. Jimin, you me now. You happy? You do what you want. Yoongi, I please. Jimin, you for what, huh? You for your work, you to my mom, huh? Or you take me for what? Okay, your next story. Read this by yourself. Bye.